Uh, Hello friends, it's Jim Freeman from the Silverbridge Senior Transitions, and I'm a managing broker with Coldwell Banker Park Shore. Here today again with another friend now, client, whom we recently worked together on some pretty complicated stuff that took place over 2 or 3 years.
Right.
We're going to tell a little bit about the story, but this is my friend Dave Campbell. Dave is a general manager, I guess, for a
Chemical production
chemical
facility.
production company, and here in Western Washington, and very busy guy, but he's got a lot of good stories to tell about some of his hobbies and things he does. I don't know if we'll get into that, but I met Dave. I met you about 3 years ago,
Right.
and the circumstances around that were what exactly? What had happened?
Well, my mother had passed, and there were a lot of challenges there. And she had a friend that was living in the house who didn't feel like she wanted to move out. We had other family members in the house that created complications. I was introduced to Jim more to help with resources for transitioning people. Although that she wasn't going to a retirement home, there were still resources he had, such as cleaning the house or retail options, or not retail, I would say that realtor options. And it's not exactly like I do this on a regular basis. So he was a good resource for a lot of things that I was looking for. We initially met. I liked his approach. It was low key but informative. And started working with him. Neither one of us realized it would be 3 years until this thing was completed. But honestly, it was a journey, one I hope to never ever take again. But he was very valuable during that course of time.
All right, and so at some point though, you became the personal representative for the estate of your relative.
Executor, correct? Yes.
And this was a new experience for you.
To a degree. I mean, I've been managing things for a long time.
Yeah.
But on a personal level and dealing with family, which creates complications I don't generally encounter, yes, it was new to me in that regard. Going through the legal systems, trying to get people out of the house, trying to deal with siblings who had whole different ideas on how life should go forward. So yes, there were challenges across the board. Yes.
Right, and those are pretty difficult challenges, but it gets even more complicated when you really don't understand the law,
Right?
and what has to happen, and that's difficult for anybody. But I think it took a while for you and I to sort of work out what we needed as far as legal help.
I think because we didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any clear-cut path. I had nothing but obstacles, and I was trying to avoid going through ejection or eviction processes. So once it came clear that what had to happen, and that probably took a year and a half or so, that I was getting nowhere, trying to be fair to the people I was dealing with, I had to go through the court systems. And then eventually we got people out of the house, which allowed us to move forward with the process. Yes.
Right. Well, and the difficulty about that problem, there's not a right or wrong here, but in the case where the home represented a major portion of your mother's estate,
Mm-hmm.
It was either do something like that or it was going to go into foreclosure.
Right. There was some money left in the estate. That money had gone to support the other siblings from my sister and so forth. And property taxes weren't being paid. There was a lot of month-to-months that had to be addressed. So yes, available funds for that were running out. And so
Right.
there was no option except for say, you've got to go or you're going to be forced out through foreclosure on the house. And so I decided it's one or the other, so we might as well save what we could.
Right. And I thought you were very humane throughout the whole process. I think you tried to work with the residents who, faced a lot of problems. They were fearful, but you tried to work with them. You spent a lot of time and effort and money And you and I actually came up with some solutions that could have worked,
Yes.
but we couldn't get the cooperation we needed to find a new home for them and find a way to pay for it and
Right.
and do the whole thing. And that was unfortunate. And one thing I would say to you who are listening to this interview, there's always a human way out. But what it really requires on everybody's part is understanding and compassion and a good way to work it out. And if you can do that, I think we probably came up with, I don't know, 3 or 4 ways that could have worked.
Well, 2 that should have worked,
Yeah.
a couple other options. It's just people weren't, as you said, it could be the unknown. It serve their interests better than eventually just being, evicted from the house.
Yeah, the sheriff.
And
showed
so
up at the door, yeah.
you can't be responsible for other people's logical progress. I mean, they did not see it rationally.
Yeah.
They saw it as, I'm here and I'm going to stay here. And so, yes, it became a very obvious path after a year and a half, yes.
Well, this is one of the things, if you've never been a personal representative for the estate of a relative or a friend, there's a lot of, things, paths that you have to take. And a lot of people don't understand the legal responsibilities that a personal representative has.
Right. I mean, all of the financial aspects of things, everybody she owed money to is looking for that. Most of her money was tied up in the house, and so things got drug out. Yes, there's a lot of roles that you have to play,
Yeah.
and I had to get lawyers involved at many junctures, and so it's not fun.
No, it's not fun, but you did a good job. I think you addressed the problems. You did the best you could to work with everybody involved and come to agreement if that was possible. And in the end, we got a result. And
Right.
Everybody went their ways. To the best of my knowledge, everybody's somewhere living their lives. But it came to a point where we got the things resolved. And then there was a decision about what to do with the home.
Right.
And one of the questions always is, what's a good path for liquidation? Because there was no way to pay all the obligations, to pay the mortgages on the home.
Mm-hmm.
Things were piling up.
Mm-hmm.
You're under pressure, so you had to make a decision. So I was able to offer you several paths. One path included multiple cash offers from what we call institutional investors. And what was your experience with that?
Well, honestly, all these decisions come to one focus point. It's money.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have money to deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
To what level? And if you don't, then that's where you were offering me some options. So
Mm-hmm.
say the people who would just buy it and flip it, for instance. Then there could have been some financial assistance to a certain point. Then we talked at length about to what level should we rehab the house.
Right.
That was a big deal because you go all in, it's going to be a fairly significant chunk of change. And or to, as you talked for a while, let's understand the buyers who have a need for space. It was a very large home, not a nice private lot, but don't need the high-end finishes. And so we would have just made everything functional. So that was really the choice. Turn it over to Flipper, make it functional, and just get rid of it, or invest a lot of time and money into it and try to get more for your dollar, so to speak.
Right. Well, and we'll never know because we chose a certain path and
Right.
we got a result. But it's always a question about how much you want to invest, what things you want to do
Right.
to rehab a home, how much it's going to cost, and how much additional value are you going to return by doing that work. And the answers aren't always obvious.
Right.
One thing is true: if you spend money on a property and improvement, you'll get a higher price for it than not. However, will you get back all the money that you spent to do
Right.
to do the work that you did
Right.
to put in your pocket at closing? And we have data on that. We have studies, but in the end, it comes to a decision. And it's not like you were inexperienced. You've done some remodeling on your own home,
Yes, I've worked around equipment maintenance. I've done I used to build houses when I was a young lad. I knew a lot of how to do most of the stuff. It's just, working full time and so forth. But to your point, yes, you put in 50,000 and sell it. But if you put in 150,000, are you going to recoup the extra 100K?
Right.
And that's the gamble.
Right.
It really is. So, and you, like you said, yes, you had a lot of literature that was helpful. What gave you the best return for your dollar? What didn't? What do people look at? What do they need to see? First, there's impressions, and then there's, what do they see when they want presentation? I guess is probably the best way to put it. Outside and initially as you walk in, from what we talked about, people generally make up their mind within the first 60 seconds when they walk in a house.
That's right.
So I focused on when they walked in the house, what do they see? And that was kind of my big thing. But yes.
And how did it feel? And what was the sensory impression that they got when they walked in the house?
To use the term, it is feng shui. It's just intuitive reaction to space.
Right.
And so when you walk in, do you say, yeah, or do you walk in and go, huh?
Yeah.
And that's really the whole point. There's where you either win or lose the battle. So the choice I made, like I said, we walked through a lot of these. I did have some money to invest. I was trying to avoid that. Honestly, I didn't want to be drug into this. And when I started looking at, oh my God, now I'm a general contractor and I'm balancing all of these people. If I was going to do this, the time is immense.
It's immense.
It's immense.
And plus you did a lot of the work personally.
I without a doubt, first off, I have to say that we took out 14 tons of trash out of that house. 14 tons. Unimaginable to me. And then it went from there. And I just got to the point, and I think what really made the difference for me was the floors. And so when I pulled up carpet, because they were just nasty, there were hardwood floors, nice oak hardwood floors underneath there. And so, God, I hate to carpet these over. So what I did is had them refinished. And once I had them refinished, I said, I can't just go linoleum on the floor here. I just can't put in Formica countertops. No. And so it just kind of built on itself. I guess I was chasing something, and then I said I had this impression, then I need to do that for that impression, then I need to do this. And yes, new windows, new furnace, new floors, new countertops, new fixtures. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. And yes, I had, in a matter of 3 months, over 550 hours personally into that house, and still trying to work full time. So it was a massive challenge. You bet. What I'll say is that every time I had a question, you always helped me through that. And that was the big part, because sure I could do it, sure I could build this, sure I could, plumb that, but is it the right choice?
Right.
Is it the way I should go? Does it make sense to do this? And so in some areas, I didn't go high end all around. No, I just put modest, reasonable, something that gave it a look. And that's, I think, the whole thing came together when you looked at all of it. And so things you couldn't splurge on were compensated by putting in a nice countertop, for instance, and nice flooring, because people see that, but they don't notice that the stove is just sort of mid-range, right?
Right.
So, so I went for the big things. And then the windows, oh no, smokers, oh my God, chain smokers. You couldn't clean the walls. I had to have it thoroughly painted and coated with an oil base, and had to have the windows replaced. But the windows were huge. Yeah. I thought it was just almost an unnecessary expense, but when I couldn't clean them, I didn't have a choice. So yes, a lot went into this. Like I said, top to bottom on this was 3 years, and a lot of sanity kind of went out the window a little bit, and beat me down physically without a doubt. But at the end, we got top dollar for it.
Well, and it looked great.
It did.
It when you walked in the door, but another important thing about the decisions that we discussed and that you made. Knowing what levels of finish to walk to,
right.
That's all important. But the most important thing is to prepare the house so that the home itself can qualify for different types of financing programs like VA, FHA.
That's why the roof and the furnace had to go be replaced.
Exactly,
right?
That's right. And why is that? Well, the reason is that if you want to sell to people who want to live in that home, 80% of those buyers have to borrow money to buy it from you.
Right.
And if you can't qualify, if the home can't qualify for those various loan programs, just game's over. You know, the only options you have are cash or to investors.
Right.
But you decided at a point in time that you wanted to go the whole way.
Well, I didn't say I made that decision up front. I think it kept sneaking up behind me. Well, if you did that, how about, no, I've got to do this too. But the advantage was that I did have the ability to do a lot of this stuff, and that's what really gave it the finished look.
Right.
Because I could put the time into it, and quite frankly, contractors are tough because finding a good one. There wasn't one contractor I didn't have to call out on something, or multiple things, and they had to come back and fix it. So it's kind of a challenge to go that route,
it is.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
It really is. And then if you're going to be the general contractor, you got to be on top of these people, and you got to know what you're talking about and what you're looking at. So I'm not sure it would have been the best path for me had I not had my history, honestly.
I believe that.
Yeah.
But some of the investors that we spoke with, you know, we had different programs.
Right.
Some people would just offer you a price. Here's the price. I'll buy it. Goodbye. That's what's called a cash offer. And then we have two advances. You know, you get an initial amount of cash, and then you get some later. And the investors actually invest their own money. They run the remodeling. They make all the decisions. And if there's anything left over, you know, at the end, you get a portion of that.
Right.
You know,
I kind of refer to those as corporate flippers, not the one single guy you think about coming in a house, but this is a business. So they come in, they send a guy, and they go, we need to get this, and this done.
And do it by this date, and by this
and then
standard.
we're just going to sell it.
Yeah.
And then they give you cash up front, so that makes you liquid. So that's actually, you're not going to get top dollar for the house, but considering some of the options, which can be daunting, it wasn't a bad way to go.
Well, if you don't have the money and you don't have 550 hours to put into the house over a couple of years, you know, it's a pretty good way to go.
That was actually the last 3 months. Don't make it sound like I was milking it.
Well, I mean, but you put in time.
I did,
you know,
yes, correct. So that
things.
I could have seen that as a viable option to get some money out of the house with somebody who did have some resources and some cash, and would make you liquid during the process, correct?
Right. But you made a decision, and although there were obstacles, there's obstacles to every decision, but the path you chose was an arduous one. But you hung in there. I mean, you went through the whole thing. You stuck with it. I was really proud of you. You know, and so
I called you a few times, thinking I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's just like, maybe this was it. And then the thing I guess that really surprised me the most about the whole process was that, you know, I still wasn't done. The sink wasn't in. There was still this and that. But, you know, I had the lawn all cleaned up and the roofs and all the major stuff done. But you wanted to list it on the market, which surprised me. But I said, okay, they'll be hanging out there. You put it on the market, and it sold literally the next day. And now I'm the bad guy because the house isn't ready to sell. Thanks for that. You know?
Well, you weren't the bad guy.
Well, I said, come on, Dave, you got to get this. Okay, that's 650 hours. All right, yeah. But yes, it sold in a day. I'll give it that.
Well, and actually, we had more than one offer. In the end, so there's lots of questions. People have, fears, I guess, about what you might have to do, what might happen. And once you choose a course, you can't reverse it and go choose another one.
You got to commit, otherwise there's not enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really, in my mind, impossible to know, even at the end, could you have done it better? Yeah, because you can't do it over.
Right.
I mean, you did it one way, but the good news is it worked.
Yeah.
And you got a good return. People who were interested in the home to live in it were interested in it because of all the things that you did and the presentation that it made.
Right.
So that was a good result in my opinion. But if you were, let's say that you could do it over.
Okay.
Based on what you learned. What
Well, there's just certain tiers you have. First off is everywhere on the side of the road you're going to see "We Buy Homes."
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's one way to just dump something and get rid of it. But honestly, they're going to look it over. So if there's something serious with it, it's not going to fly. But that's a simple way out if you just want nothing to do with it. But of course, it's the lowest ball offer you're going to get. I think the next level are these corporate flippers who step in and they're going to they're going to give you some cash, they're going to put out money to fix the home, and then they're going to split, I believe it was the profits above
Yeah.
that, between themselves and me.
So it's
and
more of a cooperative approach.
to a degree, yeah. I mean, they make the final call though.
Yep, yeah.
So, but yes, you're kind of working together to talk about what they think they're going to do, and I'm sure I would have had some input. So that's the second level, and I guess the third level and would be is that hire a general contractor and get some basic things done, and that gives you more control, but it takes your money.
Mhm.
So I see those as kind of the basic 3 months, and I kind of went a hybrid. Not only did I give my money, I gave, like I said, my sanity to this project, and I paid a lot for that. But so those are the levels I kind of saw. Right?
Okay, all right. Well, those are the levels you saw, but was your decision based upon your confidence because of your experience and your knowledge to move ahead and do what you did?
I think the house had good bones, and that was a big deal. Everybody that came in said, it's a nice solid house. And so when I started doing it, and like I said, the floors, and then I did the floors, and I did this, and I did that, and then I decided to not just touch it up, but bring in a painting company, to finish it all up, and then do the windows and the roof and the furnace, and plumbers. We definitely had some things we had to take care of. And I would say, honestly, at the time, I was saying absolutely not. I would never have done this again. Now, in the end result, to me, the dollar value, now that I'm recovered,
Got your sanity back.
I feel better. Yeah, that kind of beat me down. That the money that we made on the house justified the effort. But during that period of time, I would have probably said just the opposite.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
tough answer.
So, well, it depends on how you're feeling at the moment. Yeah.
To a degree, I didn't, I knew there was some money in there. I knew I could have done something. I had some friends that do a little this and that, but it is when you work with friends.
Hopefully
Hey,
they're
thought you were going to do a
friends.
better job than that or something. But so I thought initially, though, honestly, I was just going to fix it up a little.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I figured, okay, I'll just do what the corporate flippers would have done,
Mhm.
throw in a few appliances, drop some new flooring in, and call it good. But then I'm just kind of that way. Once I saw that, then you started talking about, that first 60 seconds. So I stood in that front door, then I stood out in the street, then I stood on the porch, then I stood in the front door. What do I see? What should I do here?
Mhm.
And that's what kind of dictate what else I do. And then I just kind of moved from that. And once I got that going, then it just kind of made sense to roll through the rest of the house. Now, I didn't do a lot of things. I thought that replacing all the doors and trim would have really added a lot of pop, but there's just no way I was going to get into that type of level. So I think that, our talks, our discussion, and when I started doing it, I never thought I was going to go as far as I did. But once I was in, and I was fortunate enough that I did have some cash, and was able to, get a loan, just a house loan to finish this up. And
But we were also able to provide you with financing.
oh yes, we did have
Transition
finances.
financing,
You did,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
If I needed, you said right off the bat, I can loan you. We can get
Yeah.
you some money
We can cover
to
it.
do this, and so that was an option. That's true. I didn't remember that portion, but that probably would have been. That's probably the way I would have went had I not had the money. I would have probably borrowed some money, brought it up to a basic level without splitting with the corporation. Half the profits.
Mhm.
That probably would have been the path. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, another thing that your experience, you've bought and sold homes before,
Right.
done remodeling in your own home. But one thing that always not surprises me, but amazes me, is how many people there are involved in this process from the very beginning to the very end where you pick up your check.
Yeah.
There's dozens and dozens of people at different professions, inspectors, appraisers,
Mm-hmm.
title people. And by the way, thank you to our friends at Tycor for allowing us to record our conversation here at their office. But they did a great job. And being able to organize a team, knowing which team members are most important, who you should have, getting everybody to work together, that's an element that a lot of people don't realize. You did a wonderful job on procuring the vendors to come in and do the physical work. But all these other people, including the buyer's agent,
Mhm.
and all the people, the MLS people and everything involved takes a lot of coordination, and it all has to. It's like I don't know, like a dance, to me.
I consider it more like whack-a-mole, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of moving parts, and in many respects, I get to a point, and that's where I call you up. I don't know. I was going to do this. What do you think? And you threw out a couple options. When it came to the sale of the house, we ran into some snags with the chimney.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of an unexpected situation to where it needed to be worked on, and so. I think we did what was fair. I wasn't totally satisfied, and I don't think the buyers were totally satisfied. But that's what a deal is.
That's what a deal is.
That's what a deal is. You're both okay,
Yeah.
but nobody's really happy. All right, and so that worked. And I would say that if I was going to say anything about somebody doing this and trying to get some people to work, my best advice would be don't get 2 or 3. People to come in and give you options on what they're going to do and quotes and so on and so forth. For instance, the deck. Everybody was wanting to charge me $25,000 for a deck.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that big a deck, so I kept calling. I must have called 10, 11 people and had them come out. That's a challenge in itself, but I saved $12,000 and they did a decent job.
Right.
There was nothing, and they did more than the other companies were going to do. They hauled away all the old stuff and all that stuff. Just keep calling until you're comfortable with something.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point up, because the way I look at it, the way I explain it to people, there's a tremendous economic value to coordination and experience and just the effort of putting in and keep getting the right answer. Keep working until you get the right answer, and you were able to do that.
Yeah, had I not saved, I think the budget on this house came up to be about $150K.
Mm-hmm.
And had I not saved the money that I did, I probably wouldn't have been able to do the windows, which in my mind were the finishing touch.
That really set it off.
It did.
Yeah.
You walked in and they were just beautiful,
Yeah.
and it's fresh and it's clean, and
Yeah.
fresh coat of paint, new flooring, and everything. Yeah, everybody's going, hey, it's just like brand new.
Yeah.
But I remember my little brother peed right there. But you don't bring that up. But no, yes, there was absolute money to be saved when you negotiate with people. In fact, I found that people who did the roof took off close to $7,000 if I went with a black roof. They just happened to have the stuff in stock.
Right.
I wasn't a fan of black roofs, but in the end, it really didn't matter to me.
It looked great.
It looked good.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a white house with a black roof.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying is that you just keep digging and you just try to find the people, and don't be bashful. Ask, hey, can you do better than that? I just talked to these folks and they did this and that, and I played them against each other quite a bit because it was true.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have guys come in and told me the roof, we're going to have to re-level it, and the pitch is wrong. We're going to do all this stuff. Another guy came in and says, no, that's crap. And they just do this because their shingle needs a certain specific for warranty, but that's not a necessity for this house.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I was thinking, oh my God, I got to spend all this money. It turns out, no, you don't. So a lot of these people use scare tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me started on the one plumber that came in there. Told me I had a broken pipe, $25,000 to dig up the basement and redo the pipe. Turns out he was lying. I brought another company. I said, you don't have a broken pipe. They fixed the clog. It cost me not $25,000, but I think somewhere right around $700 because I kept calling around. I don't trust. I don't trust. I'm just saying a lot of the people that are selling you something are exactly that, salespeople. Mm-hmm. And there's good ones and there's bad ones, just like people. Yeah. And it's just keep going until you find somebody that makes sense to you.
Right.
So.
All right. Well. Long story, lots of important lessons. I hope those of you who are listening to this conversation will take heart. Whatever decision you make, we can provide you with information, advice, money if you need it, help with vendors. But it was, Dave, my great pleasure to work with you.
All right.
And really appreciate you chose us to.
I don't know too many people who wouldn't have hung around and answered questions for 3 years without at least asking for lunch.
No, I bought the lunch.
I know you did.
Yeah. But if you have any questions for me or for Dave, if people wanted to contact you and get a reference
Sure.
about what we do, is that okay?
No problem.
All right. And we'll be back with more stories. Maybe we'll be back with some more for Dave. But the next time we meet, I hope it's in person, and I hope we'll be recording a successful conversation about a project that we work together. Thank you very much, friends.